Now, the Catholic Archbishop of Abuja Diocese, Most Reverend Ignatius Kegema, has described the death of 10 persons at the Holy Trinity Parish, Maitama, during the distribution of food palliatives as a devastating blow. He pleaded with Nigerians to come together as a community to pray for the souls of the departed, the healing of the injured, and consolation of all those affected by this tragedy. Kegema, in a statement, extended condolences to the families of the deceased and injured. He said the selfless effort of St. Vincent de Paul Society to support the poor and vulnerable are a testament to the commitment of the Catholic Church to serving the least among humanity. At the meantime, the Executive Director of the Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center, Awal Musa Rafsanjani, has condemned the alarming state of hunger and desperation in Nigeria, emphasizing the devastating impact of poor governance and inadequate response to rising poverty levels. Reacting to the tragic stampedes that claimed dozens of lives across the country during food distribution event, Rafsanjani described the incident as heartbreaking reflections of the severe hardship Nigerians are enduring. He pointed out that the escalating insecurity in the country has exacerbated this crisis, as many farmers are unable to cultivate crops due to persistent banditry and violence. Now, for more on the stampedes and what crowd control measures that could have been taken, joining us now in the studio is Rise News analyst Frank Tietie. Thank you for joining us now. The festive season that should have been, of course, a relief moment, a joyful moment, is now a sad moment for many families, especially those who were, affected. Of course, if you see the trend in first was in Nasarawa sometimes ago, and of course Ibadan recently, and now Enugu, I beg your pardon, Anambra State, and of course now in Abuja. So one wonder, what's going on?
It's another reflection of the failure of our country. The state of our country is going worse. And I don't join the wailers, neither do I join the doomsday prophets to say that things are bad in this country. We all work, whether in the media or as legal practitioners, work tirelessly to contribute our quota to ensuring that this country becomes better. What has happened today is simply a reflection of how bad the things are. I actually fought back tears when I saw that woman crying and shouting that Nigerians are hungry. And because of the detachment of those who either have the means to survive or those who have access to government resources, they don't seem to really understand. Let's get something clear. And it pains. It was very painful to hear the highly respected Tunju Disu, the Commissioner of Police. Yes, he's done very well. He's got a good reputation as a policeman. But he forgot something, that the principal responsibility of the police, according to Section 7 of the Police Act, is to ensure public order and public safety. What has happened either in Ibadan, in Anambra State, and today in Abuja, those events are simply a reflection of a failure of responsibility. So those who are supposed to, the police is not meant to respond, not to respond. We first responders oftentimes in times of emergency are either the National Emergency Management Agency, or the Fire Service Department, or the Civil Service, Civil Defense Corps. The police ought to, because I was discussing with a legal mind over this matter, particularly the judicial correspondent Toby Shoni, and we looked at the possibility of reasonable foreseeability. Whose responsibility it is to reasonably foresee what could happen. Let me tell you something. A church exists for humanitarian, purely for spiritual, development of the congregants. And then, and particularly for Catholics, when I was hungry, you fed me. So they take that, that injunction of the Bible very seriously. So when I was in prison, you visited me. So the Catholics don't play with, you know, these issues of giving arms and offering humanitarian services. And the same thing, even Pentecostals have gone around holding soup kitchens. And that's why I'm not surprised that the ex-queen of the Oni of Ife, was involved, because it's a part of a spiritual exercise. They are not supposed to reasonably foresee the possibility of crowds, a crowd that will grow out of control. Now, let me tell you, the idea, because...
But he said that, the police was not informed. Adequately informed, that's one.
No, please.
He also balanced it up by saying,
for goodness sake,
just a moment.
When a criminal is coming to invade, does he inform the police?
He also...
Wait, what are you talking about? That people who are gathering food to give to people who are poor, that the government could not provide a reasonable situation for,
yes.
And then you are telling me that they should be concerned about informing police that there will be trouble because they want to distribute food.
He has also said, look, that there is an order on ground for his men, to respond, or not to wait until something happens or they are informed before they respond.
Let me tell you something, for goodness sake. There's a failure of intelligence, a failure of responsibility, and the Nigerian state is responsible for all of the deaths that have happened in Ibadan, in Anambra and Abuja. The Nigerian state could have put things in place. It had agents in place that could have prevented it. There were policemen who ought to be on surveillance in this city. We have surveillance cameras posted on this city who ought to know that there is a growing crowd there, and they ought to dispatch themselves, waiting for the Catholic Church to inform them. What kind of crass irresponsibility is that?
Well, let's look at, because some have commended the intentions behind these gifts away, but question their, execution as well. Of course, the police, perhaps may have to also take the blame, like you said. But again,
the Nigerian state should take the blame. The Nigerian state should be responsible for these deaths, and it should do everything possible to compensate the families and apologize to the religious bodies, apologize to the Catholic Church, apologize to all of those persons that are trying to use as scapegoats because they were trying to help in a situation of mass hunger. Should we be this hungry as a country that is this rich? Should we be this hungry that our citizens will run after Indomie and die? This is a national tragedy. I'm happy the president has called off his meetings out of respect for this huge embarrassment against this country. Look, stop this scapegoatism. Police failed. We failed. Our country has again failed these people. This is a tragedy. It's a reflection of how much our country has failed. Now, stop blaming anybody. Blame those irresponsible people who collect salaries, who don't know how to do their jobs, who don't know how to prevent a thing before it happens, and after it happens, we hold press conferences. For goodness sake, we owe these people not so more than compensation. We need to improve this country. This is an international embarrassment. Your people dying because they want to collect, they went to soup kitchen, and then they stampede, and then the police says they should have informed them. What kind of irresponsibility is this?
Let's look at how do we, going forward, what are the measures or perhaps a framework that we need to put in place beyond, informing the police and say, look, you need to be here, or beyond police taking, proactive steps and say, well, we need to go to that place, there's something happening there. What are the things that we need to put in place in terms of measures? Perhaps to checkmate, such incidents.
I listened to your interview with the Commissioner of Police. When government officials are given discretion to make regulations, they foresee possibilities. In our own case, and I hate this blame game, in our own case, we do not, and again, this is a call for us to step up, we do not sit down to think and be proactive and to see what possibilities can happen, and then you make regulations. The National Civil Defense Corps, during the days of when terrorism was rife, was, tried as much as possible to give certain regulations, preventive regulations to markets, to malls, and all sort of places. Why is it that we don't have prescriptive measures on the part of the police to religious organizations, to charitable organizations, to persons? I even had the idea myself of distributing food in my own locality. So if people died, you were going to blame me? Because the idea is this, word of mouth. We are so hungry, and then there's food going out there, and so let's go there. And the way you see the crowd surging, so if they were Shiites, they were surging into FCT, you get enough intelligence to stop them. But you didn't stop the hordes of hungry people because you don't really care about them. This government must care about them. And look, they must, and this is so utterly embarrassing. in a situation where we have a Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs that has spent billions of naira over the previous years, saying that it is carrying out social interventionist schemes to cover, to reduce poverty, and there's this poor state for ordinary noodles. People will die in the Federal Capital Territory. Because, look, the church may have just simply envisaged 1,000 persons will come, and they provided for 2,000. And I know what they do. And then they make calls for people to even bring food. But did you see the people that were going there? They didn't have to be members of the church. They didn't even have to be Christians. But they simply heard that something was going on there, and they went in large crowd. So the point is this: failure on the part of inability to reasonably foresee that this will happen.
Right.
The Commissioner of Police said so much about gathering data and then analyzing data. Those were things, they were self-indicting themselves.
All right. Just before I let you go, I mean, Frank Tietie, I mean, of course, we do know that the IG has expressed sadness, you know, about
it doesn't end there.
But also, he also has warned about unorganized, unauthorized, you know, gathering. So, how do we?
Look, section 40
just to land on the question. Just to land on that question.
You know, guarantees the freedom to assemble. Are you getting me?
Yes.
You don't need to get permission to do good things.
But what he's saying is unorganized.
How?
Unorganized.
How do you mean organized?
Gathering and unauthorized.
They were simply overwhelmed because of the state, the high state of hunger. Now, we also I don't want to sound like a broken record, because the idea is that when the crowd was surging, there should have been some form of first response on the part of the police. It didn't happen. That crass negligence, national negligence on our part, makes Nigeria responsible for the death of the persons in Ibadan, in Anambra, and in Abuja. We must take responsibility for it. It is not enough to be sad. It's not enough for us to say we condemn. We console or we express condolence. No, we must stop this political correctness. If we have to be a country that wants to move from this place. And look, it may be happening to these poor people today. Who knows who it will happen to tomorrow? Well, I hope the president goes beyond cancelling his events to taking responsibility. If it doesn't, we will. I believe there are many people around, human rights activists, who will hold this government to account.
Okay. A good place to leave it there. Perhaps, the police will be able to take proactive, actions and measures in place to prevent such occurrence. Thank you so much, Frank Tietie, Rise analyst, for coming on the news tonight.